Good morning, everyone. This is part 4 of What's New in Oracle Apex 23.2 preview. This is Oracle Apex Office Hours, and I'm your host, Jason Haynes. I'm a Senior Principal Product Manager on the Apex Product Management team. Today, we want to also make sure you're aware of Apex 23.2 preview that is currently available on apex.oracle.com. So as you see in the chat, I asked where everyone is from, and tell us if you've used Apex 23.2 yet on the preview that's available on apex.oracle.com. The features that will be discussed today are already available there. And so after this call, after you've seen how some of these things work, you can immediately go request a new workspace on apex.oracle.com and start trying it out today before the product becomes generally available. So this is part 4 of a 5-part series. We've been talking about Apex 23.2 new features for the last month or so, but we have today's session and next week's session is all to round out the 5-part series. All these sessions are being recorded, and they will all be available after Apex 23.2 goes general availability, which is coming really soon. Please check out our events calendar where we post Oracle Apex events. It's also a community opportunity that if you know of an Apex event in your area or your region, you can submit it to be added to the calendar. Anything having to do with Apex at all, user group meetings, different events, maybe something we've missed or don't know about in your area, go ahead and submit it so we can get it on the calendar and share with the rest of the community. Today in part 4, what's new in Oracle Apex 23.2, we're going to have actual developers on the Apex product development team talk about features that they have been working on or built themselves, or amongst the team who has been working on these features. So we're going to be talking about working copy today, new builder extensions, new shared component subscriptions, and also REST data source improvements for Fusion app extensions. So as you can see, these are 4 major topics, and they're going to cover a lot of material as the various people present some of the demos that they have ready for you today. First up is going to be Matt Nolan, and Matt Nolan's going to be talking about working copy. Over to you, Matt.
All right, thanks very much, Jason. Okay, all right. So first I should start out with what is the working copy feature. The working copy is basically a special copy of your application, which allows you to make changes in, keep them separate from your main application. And when you're ready at your own convenience, you can selectively merge these changes back into your main application. So why would you want to do this? Well, it might be if you're separating new features that you're working on and you don't want to include them in your development app until it's ready, or it could be bug fixing as well, or trying out, just taking a copy of a page and trying out some new changes. And if you're happy with them, you can easily migrate them back to your main application. All right, so the best thing for me to do is to show you the demo of this and how this actually works. So here in the Apex Builder, we can see a very special icon here. This shows that there's currently working copies in this application. And here we can see that we have 1 working copy as well. So to get started, we'll actually jump into the first demo and have a look at how we actually create a working copy. So over here on the right-hand side, sort of tucked away, is where you're going to create the working copy. So this is the only link in the application to do it. So it's when you first land into your application, you can create a working copy to get started. And we'll just call it demo. I'll create the working copy. You can, it's optional to add a description. It's just there to let your rest of the team know what you're actually working on. Okay, so now that we've got a working copy, what's different here is you'll see that the icon now is yellow, and you'll also see the working copy name here. You'll have a menu up the top here, which allows you to switch back to main. You can see the working copies that you're in, and it's denoted by a tick if you're in the working copy. And then you have the option to merge into main. So once you're ready to merge changes, you can refresh your working copy from main, so you can pull changes back in to your working copy that others might have merged into the main application. You can compare changes, so you can just have a look and see what's different between your working copy and the main application. You can view working copy details, and then you can also delete a working copy. Okay, so what we want to do is in our working copy, make a change and have a look and see how that process works. All right, so we've just got a blank application here, and in the body, I'll just create a new static region, and I'll just call it Hello World. My typing is atrocious. All right, let me save that. So now when we go and what we're going to do first is we're going to merge that back into our main application. So we land on our page here where you can see that we're currently exporting the main application. And now we're exporting our working copy. And as it's finished, it shows us what the differences are here. So we can see that we've changed page 1. And if I open up the diff, so we've got a diff editor, and automatically it jumps to the first change. And you can see here that we've added this new static content where we're saying hello world. Okay, and that's a nice diff of the change that we can see. So we just proceed, click on next. And so we have the option to back up the target app first. That's just in case anything blows up. Hopefully it won't, but if it does, you can revert to your backup. And you also have the ability to delete the working copy after merge. But we'll just leave the defaults for the moment. We'll merge that. And we can see now that was the original how our page looked before we merged. And if I refresh now, you can see that we have the hello world there. Okay, so next I'll jump into a bit more of a complicated demo for you. So here in our main application, and if I jump into, we have one working copy, and it's a new feature that we're adding, which is the sales dashboard. So we can see here we have a sales page, and if we switch back to main, so we've got the link just to quickly jump back, we can see that we don't have the sales dashboard at the moment. So what we want to do is jump into our working copy, and we want to merge that back into the main application. So as you can see, we do an export of the main application, and then we'll compare that with the working copy export. So it just takes a little bit of time to run. Okay, so what's different now is that we can see we have list entries, breadcrumb, and a page. So there's a bunch of components that are grouped for this particular change. And so we're going to merge them all in. And if I click on next, and before we merge, we just want to have a look at our app here. We can see that this is how it currently looks. So we're missing our demo, our dashboard at the moment. So we're just going to confirm and add the dashboard to our main application so we can see it now here. And you'll also see that when I refresh the page, we get our list entries added and we get our sales dashboard page. So it's just a great way to have all your features, all your changes, I should say, for your feature moved over in one simple click. All right, so now I'm going to jump onto the third demo, which is we have two working copies. So we've got Bob making changes, Harry making changes. So if we have a look at this page here, we're interested in the search employees. So this has been merged in by Harry. So if we look at Harry's particular app, we can see that he's merged the search employees page into main. And if we have a look at Bob's app, we can see that he's actually missing the search page. So what Bob wants to do is pull those changes back into his working copy. But first, what we want to do is just compare the changes just to make sure that there's nothing else that we need to pull back in. So the compare works exactly the same way as the merge. It just stops on comparing. So if we have a look, we can see that this is telling us that these three things are missing from Bob's app. All right, so from the working copy, we're missing those. So what we want to do is we want to pull those changes in. So we're going to refresh the working copy. All right, and so this is bringing the changes from main back into our working copy. So the export order is slightly reversed. So we export our working copy, then our main application. We can see here that there's three changes that we can pull in. Okay, and before we do, we just want to have a look at Bob's particular app. Okay, and we will do that just by running here. I'll just log in. Okay, so we're missing the search. All right, and we just confirmed those changes, and now we should see that we've now got the search employee page, and we can find the employees that we need to look for. Okay, so that's basically showing those demos. One thing that I want to show you too is when we're doing the merge or when we're refreshing, there's a couple of caveats that you need to be aware of. So what you want to do is you want to reserve page ranges for each of your working copies so that you don't have conflicts when you actually merge your changes back in. So what you want to do is reserve a set of pages for each working copy. And if we just have a look here, there's more information here on not everything is supported. So things like translations, themes, templates, and supporting objects and application properties are not yet supported. We're looking to introduce those in a future release. So there's some other tips here that you should look at. So this is available on the more information link. Okay, and that's basically it. So I'm going to hand back over to Jason and happily answer any questions.
That was great, Matt. Thank you so much for that overview and introduction of those features. I mean, a lot of people are excited for these, and they've been waiting for this kind of functionality for quite a long time. So looking quickly at the questions here, Tracy Carlson's asking, is there any way to merge just a single page?
Yes, you can merge just a single page. You can selectively choose what you want to merge. So you might not choose everything. It might just be a single page that you can merge.
Okay. And one more question to that end. Evelyn is asking, is there a thought of creating working copies of the schema, the tables, and later have an option to merge or at least list differences between main and copies of schemas?
So the working copy feature only is limited to the actual application itself. That's a good idea and something that we could look into, but obviously it does complicate things by copying schemas and working with database objects.
Okay. And one last question on this subject from Al. Do working copies maintain component IDs?
So basically, the component IDs, the way that the export process works is we export with original IDs of your working copy. So that way you don't see any ID conflicts. And basically the IDs are matching when we do a export with original IDs.
All right.
Does that answer?
Yes, I believe so, Matt. Thank you very much for your time. It's a great new feature. We can't wait to have it in anybody's hands and have everyone actually start using it and even offer more feedback for the next release of Apex and any improvements we may have to that end. So thank you again for all your hard work on this. So up next, we have Christian Rakita. He's going to talk about the new features for builder extensions in Apex 23.2. Over to you, Christian.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everybody from the Netherlands. I'm going to show to you a feature I've been working on called builder extensions. And as you see, I'm here on apex.oracle.com. 23.2 already is available there, and I could show you this new feature on this server. So builder extensions. Basically, we already provide a number of useful links in Builder, like here on the right side, the Apex websites, tutorials, or in the help menu where you can go to the documentation in the version that is related to Apex, the Apex version you're working on. So there are already a couple of links, and you might not know this, but we even have a link to SQL Developer Web on apex.oracle.com that enables you to access your database schema that is associated with your workspace. So we're trying to extend Apex and provide useful information in with those links. But that might not be enough for your environment, and you might have a collection of bookmarks that you're using in your browser. And we now provide a way to define your own bookmarks and links and add them to Apex Builder. we call this Builder Extension menu. And you can find this in the administration page. So the administrator can add additional links to the workspace. You can find the administration page here in Manage Extension Links, or you go to Manage Service and there is the Manage Extension Links here as well. And it basically is very simple. You have, and just let me add a new row here. You have a display sequence. You can add a label to your link that will appear in the menu, and you add the URL that you want to point to. So for example, when I'm working with Apex, of course, we have the link to the documentation, but I usually want to have a direct link to the API documentation, in this case, JavaScript documentation, just for my convenience. And I just can add it here. And let me add another one. And that would be the PL SQL API documentation. So I add this here. I save this, and so far nothing happens. But once I refresh the builder or the builder menu, go into a different page, you see this additional icon appearing here. And these are the extensions, the links that I did configure. So clicking on the link will open a new tab, and I will be in the documentation page. Yeah, other useful tools that you might want to add to these, at least I, as a developer, find those very useful. For example, if you want to build, if you want to use an icon somewhere in the application, I usually go to the universal theme icon reference, and just let me add this as a description here as well. So I'll add that too. And another one that comes in useful is in the same application, the universal theme button builder. So we have this as well. Set. And now these links will appear as well. So go to the items icon reference, opens a new tab, and I can look for my icons. Whoop, not Dave, save. And then I can get my code here, go back to my application and use that in there. Okay, so far these links I've added are just plain URLs pointing to an external website, and that's more or less a bookmark. But in order to provide more context in these links and with the tools that you're using in your development environment, and that could be for some version control like GitHub or an issue tracker, CI/CD tools like Jenkins or Hudson, security scan tools, whatever, you want to provide some context in which application am I working in, what is the workspace that I'm working in, which page am I working in? Who am I? What is my user name? For this, we provide a number of substitution strings that you can use in those URLs. And the first two ones will look familiar as app user and app session ID. You know that from when developing applications, you can use those in your applications. But the other ones are not application specific in a sense of a runtime application, but within Builder, giving you the context in the workspace you're working in, the application you're working with, and the page you're currently working in Builder, in the page builder. So using these substitution strings, we can have more complex URLs and providing something that is more related to the application we're working to. For example, I have a GitHub repository here and number of projects, and you see I've got of course this is my username, and I have an application here called Apex GitHub test. So using this or setting up my GitHub and my project, and you might have noticed this is the name of my workspace as well. And if I create an application and somehow get this information from an application, I could link to this GitHub repository. So let's try this in my extensions. So I add another row, and first let's begin with this URL. So I've got the extension workspace name. So the workspace name is ZeroKita. Just let me give it the label as well. So it's GitHub demo. Save this. And now I'm just going to close this tab, And now if I'm looking into my extension menu, I've got an additional entry, click on it, and it will open my repository directly. That's not really magic yet, but let's have a look. I've got my GitHub test here, and if I look at the application definition, I used this as an application alias. So again, going or changing my extension links and extending the link with my application alias, or with the application alias of the application I'm currently working on. That should then lead me to go to application builder. I'm working in this application, maybe in this page. And so I want to look at this project in GitHub and immediately can go to the project page. And we even could take it a step further and add the page to our GitHub link. So again, just let me enhance this. Yeah. So it's a slightly different link, but you see the workspace name is still in there. Project name, aka alias of the application. And here I've got the page ID, including this dot. So save this, again back to test here, going into page 1, and then it should bring me to a different page. Okay, this is the export page, and I have to be honest, I slightly faked this because this has been in a standard Apex export, and usually the numbers of the export are in the format of 5 numbers, and I'm modified those numbers here. But again, you can use the page number to maybe not GitHub, but to other tools you're using, and link those link those pages together while you're working. So still, we only have used external links here, GitHub, other websites. But how about linking to applications that we already have in our workspace? Maybe tools that we have created to enforce standards, run QA reports on our applications, or monitoring developer activity, any helper that you might have created to support your own development process. So I've got a small application here, which is a file explorer. And the small experiment of mine, if I run this application, what you will see is you have to choose an app ID, and then the static application files will be presented in a more Explorer-like way. It comes in handy if you have lots of static application files organized in folders in your application. So this is a small tool of mine. If I want to use it from within an application, just have a quick look on how are my static files organized. What I need to do is point my link to that application, and just let me open the extension page here again. And I can use a relative ID row. So because I'm on the same instance in the same workspace, I can use a relative ID here, pointing to my File Explorer app and passing a parameter, which was the select box on the page, and pass the application ID. Just give it a name as well. So like this, save this, and then go to the builder. And for example, go to this application, and if I run my static file explorer now, I'll get this pre-populated, and I can inspect my files. So this is basically the functionality, and so builder extensions is a way to add links and maybe functionality to applications that you have in your workspace to your builder for your developers, available for all developers. And it's a way that is enabling you to integrate tooling with your Apex development environment. And it's really up to you to leverage this functionality. And I'm really curious how you, the community, the developers will use this feature. And that more or less concludes my demo.
Thank you, Christian. Can you get on camera for a second? I think we forgot to
Yes.
remind you to turn it back on. We have a few questions to quickly review here. Dharmendra just asked, I think, something relevant to the link you just hit. He said he sees it, it's an uppercase when passed, though it's very rare that the case may affect. I mean, is it case sensitive in the URL? Is that, I think that's what his question's referring to.
So far, I haven't seen any issues with cases in URLs. For example, GitHub, I could have used the lowercase as well. It would equally work fine. I know the URLs Apex is using, the friendly URLs are not case sensitive as well. So
Okay,
no issue there.
great. Next question. From Alan, will there be a PL SQL API to manage extension links?
Currently, we don't have this. The links will be exported with your workspace. I remember we were talking about exporting links separately. So if you have a bunch of links and you want to share it on other environments as well, that might be an option, but that's not in yet. Might come up in a future release.
Okay. Next question. Can you save it as a private extension link that only a particular user can see? So are there conditions available with each link?
Again, that's not available yet.
Okay.
I already heard that one before. Currently, all links are available to all developers in the workspace.
Okay. One other question. Is there a way to categorize the links in folders? I guess maybe a parent-child relationship in that menu?
No. Currently, it's just a list of links.
Just a list.
And
you can just change the ordered list by the static ID. Yeah. All right, great. Well, that concludes the list of questions for this particular content. Thank you so much again, Christian. That was about builder extensions in Apex 23.2. Next up, we have Shahari Rava. Shahari is going to talk about the shared component subscriptions that are coming available in Apex 23.2 as well. Over to you, Shahari.
Thank you, Jason. So today I'm going to talk about improved shared component subscription. So the several shared components already support the subscription functionality. So in this release, we went through all the shared components and we evaluated if it will be useful to add subscription functionality. So we added all the shared components, this functionality, which we consider as useful. So there are around 10 shared components which supports this subscription functionality. So when we are adding this subscription functionality, we also try to see if there are any opportunities for enhancements. So we have also added several enhancements to this functionality. When we are working on these shared components, so we identified some of the shared components do not have the copy functionality, so that's also been added. We also made it easier for you to copy the components within the same app. So I can show you that in the demo. And the second thing is when the shared component is subscribed, so it will become read-only so that you can avoid some accidental edits, and also the source of truth will be always the master. So you cannot modify anything in the subscribed shared components. So I will just quickly go through the demo and then we will come back to the remaining points. So for the demo, I have two windows. One window here, I have the master app, app 100. If I see here in the build options, I have 3 build options. If I go to my subscribing app, so I only have 1 build option. So the first, the copy functionality, all the shared components I set, the 10 shared components follow the consistent UI UX pattern for the copy. So if you want to search within the app, let us say you have some 50 or 100 shared components of this type. Previously, if you want to copy, you need to go into create, you need to say from other app, the same app, and you need to select from the select list. Now you can filter here, you can search here, and once you find the one which you want to copy, then you can just click on this button. It automatically pre-populates the source. You just give a new name, and that's it. You can copy it. If you want to copy from the other app, so we have still kept the link here in the create option. You can still have this, or directly in the interactive report page, you have this task here under task region in the right-hand side, copy from another app. So when you click this, you have to select the other app. By default, the first app will be selected, and then you select the source from where you wanted to copy it. And by default, the subscribe flag is enabled. When you disable it, it only copies it. When you enable it, or when you on it, it also subscribes. So I click on it is now copied and subscribed. And if I go inside, you could see that it's all read only. You cannot do anything except deleting or unsubscribing. So if you want to modify some changes, you have to either modify in the master or you have to unsubscribe and change it here. So that's the copy functionality and the read-only behavior. And the next point is automatic dependency resolution. So when we are working on this, we observed some of the shared components also refer other shared components. For example, application process, you can specify authentication scheme. You can specify the build option. So to simplify the things, when you are copying, we automatically see if the if the source process has authentication scheme. If it has it, then in the target app, we see if you have a authentication scheme with the same name, then we reuse it. If it doesn't, then we automatically create it. So that's how we automatically do this dependency resolution. So let us see that in the demo. So first, I will go to application processes in the subscribing app. So there is no process. If I go here in the master, let me go to application processes. I have a process one. So here, if I see, it is using a authorization scheme administration rights. So I will just change it to, let us say, manager, and the build option as to be deleted. So let me save this. So we have a authorization scheme manager and the build option to be deleted. I will go to the subscribing app. I will see the authorization scheme. I don't have it, the manager. And if I go to build option, I already have the to be deleted. So let me go to application process. Let me use the copy process again. And I want to copy the app process one, subscribe flag enabled, and copy. So now you can see that the authorization scheme is copied. I can also go inside. So the authorization scheme is copied. The build option, of course, it is using the same build option to be deleted, right? So if I go to shared components, build options, I can see that it is not duplicated. It has reused this build option. At the same time, if I go to authorization schemes, I have the manager authorization scheme, and which is just created just now, and it is automatically subscribed as well, because when we in the copy wizard we have chosen the option to subscribe. Yeah, so let's go to this master app again. So in the application process, in the master app, I just wanted to change the authorization scheme to administration rights and click on apply changes. So after subscription, we have done some change. So let us see now in the application process page what will happen. So now we can see that the status says it needs refresh. It detects there is a change in the master. If I go in, of course, it still has the referring to the old authorization scheme. And just wanted to show you again, we already have the authorization scheme with the name administration rights. So ideally, it should reuse it. It shouldn't copy it, or it shouldn't modify anything with respect to authorization scheme. So I will go to edit screen of this application process. Here, now you will see, since the status needs refresh, you will see additional button refresh application process. So previously, if it is up to date, you won't see this button. Now, if I refresh, so it again tries to do the automatic dependency resolution, and now it sees there is a change in the authorization scheme. The change is it is now modified to administration rights, and this administration rights is already exist here, so it will reuse it. You can see that now it is not subscribed because it is already existing. So we do not want to automatically modify something which is existing. If you are doing automatic copy, then we do automatic subscribe. So let me go back to my enhancements. So automatic dependency resolution and the subscription status, I just demoed you. When there is a change, now we can actually see that. And now there is also an option to bulk refresh. So for that, I wanted to go to the master application again. I have some build option. So basically I have 3 build options. So let me go and subscribe to all these 3 in build option page. So commented out is already existing. Of course, while editing also you can subscribe, still possible. to be deleted is already there. I just copy the another one, test build option. So I have 3 and 3 are up to date, all good. So I just go here. I will just update something. Comment. So this, they already have the comment. So I just add 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So now I go to the subscribing app. If I do refresh, I can see all these are in the status of needs refresh. If you want to do individually refresh, you can go to the edit screen. You can click on the refresh build option button. But there is an easier way. So once one of the shared component of this type is subscribed, under the tasks, you will also see a new task called refresh subscriptions. When you click on this, it opens a model dialog page where it will list all the shared component of this type that needs refresh. So you can just review it and you can click on this button. It will refresh all this automatically. As I said, if you want individual refresh, you can go inside and do it. So I just want to reiterate. So all these new features are only available for these components which we have modified in 23.2. So there are some old shared components which already supports the subscription. So they may not have all these functionalities, which is we are trying to do in the future releases. And one particular component I would like to highlight here is the component settings, which is slightly different from others. So because so here I'm going to the master application again. So the component settings are not like other shared components where you create them. So when you have an Apex application, you have these settings already for all the native components. So, but it may be the case that you wanted to use the same settings across all the apps in the workspace. So for that, you can do, of course, for that reason, you do not have a create, you do not have a copy, you do not have a delete, all that is not there. So let us assume now for the switch, by default, it is yes, no, but I wanted to use 1 for on and 0 for off value, right? So I just click on apply changes. And these are the same settings I wanted to use across all the apps in this workspace. For that, how can I do? I can just go here. I can subscribe to the component settings, and switch, right? So here, as I said, there is no delete option, there is no copy option. And when you are also clicking on subscribe from, of course, you can only subscribe to the switch component setting. You cannot subscribe to other component settings. So I want to subscribe from switch. And as soon as I click on apply changes, of course, it will be subscribed and it will automatically trigger the refresh, right? It is true for all the shared components. So I click on apply changes. You can see the settings. I can go inside. I can see the settings are changed. So yeah, so that's all I had for my demo. Thank you.
Fantastic, Shreyhar. We have a couple comments and questions. So from one of the comments, actually seems to be 2 comments, the same. A selector would be appreciated in bulk refresh.
A selection. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so we thought about that, but why someone wanted to refresh only partially? So that is the reason we have not provided. But yeah, so we could definitely consider that. It is always useful to have options. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. So Dharmendra has a question. Since dependent options are copied, does that mean master and child app should have same parsing schema?
So yes, if the components are based on the query, for example, application process, right? So it has some code. So in that cases, that is true. So the code should be correct. It won't automatically validate it while you do the subscribe and refresh. It copies the code, it won't validate it. But when you actually use it, definitely you will have the problems. That is true.
Okay. One final question here is from Travis. Is there a refresh subscriptions dialog for the entire application's shared components rather than just ones of certain type? Like, can I selectively refresh some, but not others in a list?
Yes, so it has, I think, two questions. One is the selector option, adding the selection. That is definitely something we want to consider. And the second thing is for the entire app across all the shared components. As I said, in this release, the subscription status column is added only for the new shared components, but the existing one doesn't have already. So that is the reason we have not provided at the application level, but it is also in the pipeline. It is going to come.
Okay. And actually, one final question from Al. Does the filter in the refresh all work? Does it restrict the refresh to only those listed?
No, no.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
great. And just a reminder to everyone with regards to all these features, the whole iterative approach of Apex development in general also applies to the product, right? So we start with some of these features that are really large. And since we're on a twice-a-year release cycle, we don't have enough time to get 100% of a particular feature all baked in for the next release, right? We get started, we iterate, we take feedback, and we improve it from there. So thank you, Shahari. Shared component subscriptions in 23.2 coming soon. On to Steve Minch. Steve's going to be talking about REST data source improvements for Fusion Apps extensions. Over to you, Steve.
Great. Thank you. So, hello, thanks. You may or may not know, but Oracle's Fusion applications have thousands of APIs that they provide for all the different pillars of functionality. I'm showing an example here of the customer experience or CX platform. One of the key business objects there might be sales leads or people interested in buying products from your company. And what I'm going to show you today is new features in Apex 23.2 that make reading and writing data from any Fusion Apps API very easy. We provide a companion app that makes understanding those Fusion Apps APIs very simple. I'll show that. I'll talk about how common use cases like building query by example pages are very straightforward and declarative to set up. And finally, I'll try to show off a simple example of iterative development, because part of customizing the Fusion applications involves extending the data model with additional fields, additional custom objects, and your Apex app can work with all of those very simply. So let's go to the demo. Let's say we're working on a marketing application that needs to work with Fusion applications sales leads. Since it's a REST API, we'll, under shared components, go to the REST data sources and create a new REST data source from scratch. The key to choose this, all of the new functionality that I'll be talking about in my segment here, is the type of REST service called Oracle Cloud Applications REST Service. Since we're working with sales leads, we'll call that, and I'll paste in the lead that the URL that I found in the documentation that represents the endpoint for leads. It will recognize the URL and split it into a base URL, which could be changed when you deploy to a remote production server, for example, and a service URL path that will stay the same, depending on all your environments. There's some options that we'll talk about later, but taking the defaults is usually the best choice. I've got my credential set up for our internal Fusion demo server. And so I just click on Discover, and it will it knows how to understand the metadata about the Fusion Apps endpoint. It will retrieve a few sample rows so you can make sure you chose the right object, and then you create your REST data source. So very similar to how you might have used the ORDS REST service or our new OData REST service. The process is very familiar. If you want to create pages, you can immediately start to do something. You can choose any page that you're familiar with. Let's go with an interactive report called Leads. We also pick a form, lead, and choose our REST data source that we just created. And we'll see how every REST data source in a Fusion Apps world gets a special primary key called Apex $resource key. This is because the business objects in Fusion Apps have several different strategies that they can use for uniquely identifying an object. They can be single attribute, multi-attribute, or even alternative primary keys. And so Apex handles all those cases automatically, and you just always pick Apex $resource key, and you know you've got a working primary key to use for your Apex app. So we'll create our 2 pages. We get brought into the builder, and I chose the leads object because it's one of the most largest objects in Fusion apps. We can scroll and scroll and scroll. You'll see it's got 230 attributes on it. So you probably don't want to include all of those things. I want to show 2 different techniques to narrow down the columns that you want to work with in your forms. I want status and rank, so boom. So let's delete that. Now we've got just a few columns. The reason it's also important to reduce the number of columns is because we also optimize the transport over the network to only ask for the attributes that your page or your region needs, so that you don't get 250 attributes if you only need 5. So make sure, I'm going to show you in 3 different ways that you can reduce the amount of data, both to simplify your page as well as to optimize the performance of the application. So this was optimizing the columns of our report page. Let's do the same thing over in the form page. Here I'm going to show you an alternative way of keeping the fields but commenting them out. That's a new capability in 23.2. It leaves them visible, and they stay around in case you ever synchronize the columns. They'll stay there, but they don't participate at runtime. But they allow you to keep things around. Maybe while you're still working on the page, you might use them later. So that's a second way of using that. So we've done those changes and save. We can just simply run the application after our page gets saved. Run the app, and we immediately have a leads page that will know how to query, filter, and edit any data that you've included in your page, and automatically know not just how to read the data, but let's say you change the status code to unqualified, which is one of the legal values, and apply those changes. The data sources that are set up for Fusion apps automatically out of the box know how to query, insert, update, and delete in the smartest possible way, including using bulk operations and all the features that the Fusion apps REST APIs support. So the next thing I wanted to show was one of the applications that we provide, a utility app, lets you easily explore the application APIs that your workspace applications are using. And so I'm just going to flip to a tab where if we look at the endpoints in use, I'll see that that's one of the other apps. We're looking at our marketing app. So there's Marketing 100. We created a leads data source just right now in the demo. I'm going to fetch with that download icon, fetch the metadata, and that will be cached locally. So you can not only look at all the available endpoints to, for example, quickly find what's the URL to the account service if you want to work with accounts, copy that to the clipboard, paste it in Apex Builder. If you want to drill into a particular data source like leads, we pull in all the information that Fusion Apps provides that describe every attribute, help you understand what's queryable, what's required, what's editable, which have LOVs, and you could easily copy the URL to the clipboard, create a second data source, and easily set up an LOV, set up child objects. If you click on child objects, a lead might have, you can see here, there's predefined at least 30 different kinds of child collections of information about a lead. Your Apex app can easily work with all of those by just copying the link and creating another REST data source. So I'll move on to show the the third part of what I wanted to, but first we showed a simple example of interactive report, but every kind of region works with the Fusion Apps data. So you could easily use a faceted search and a map to build a salesperson's dashboard where they could filter their leads, see where they are on a map, open up an editing page to look at leads and work on the data that might be some standard objects as well as some custom objects, because Fusion Apps allows developers to extend the data model with whole new fields and whole new objects, and Apex can work with all of those. So let's take a look at an environment. The typical environment you would use is called Fusion Application Composer. It's part of the Fusion Apps. Certain users get the right role to be able to open App Composer and explore the standard objects, create custom objects, define any particular additional data that you might need to store for your extended application extensions. And so I'm going to focus on just the data composer part, which is the part that works on the business objects. And we're going to use that to show off the next part of the demo. So I'm working with Data Composer. It's essentially just the core part of what Application Composer is. At the moment, you don't see any objects called art. I've got 3 objects that I've been working on that have the word art in the name. But when you do extensions in Fusion Apps, you do that in the context of a sandbox, which is kind of like a branch for metadata, where I've created one called Apex Extensions Demo, and I'm going to enter that sandbox. This is now looking at the Fusion application side, where I can look at the business objects that are in that sandbox, and I'll see that I've got 3 that weren't there before because I've just created them in the last day. One for artists, one for artwork, and one for the art medium. And just to simplify, we can filter this list and look at, for example, the fields that are part of the artwork object. Every business object in Fusion Apps has a REST API. Every object can be put through the same wizard we saw with leads. And so what you're able to do is use Apex to quickly build an application that can work with artists, media, and the artworks in this sample set of data. And for example, build a page that uses cards for showing off artworks, searching the artworks in a way that supports many different optimized ways of filtering. This is a query by example page that'll show a few different ways, like looking for vintage posters created before 1960. You can quickly perform searches like that against the REST API that's working with these custom objects in the backend. And the one important thing to understand is that these objects didn't appear until I put myself in the context of this sandbox. And so how do you do that in Apex? Apex needs to know what the sandbox is. You do that under shared components, component settings, and it's a component settings of the Oracle Cloud Apps REST service component. Right in there, I simply put in the name of the sandbox I want to work with, and suddenly everything about that, all the pending metadata changes, all of the new custom fields, new custom objects, any business logic that a Fusion Apps admin has added to the server side of their Fusion business objects instantly shows up in the context of your Apex application. So if we're looking at the artworks application, for example, we did a little bit of filtering. I can also do filtering like query San Fran, so even tokenized row search is supported. And so if we go look, just to show you a little bit of the optimizations that are going on, if we look at the view debug page, and I look at the very last request that happened, if I search here for, I know that it'll have the word making in it. So we made a GET request. You can see in here that it included the medium. That was the lithographic posters. It's going to use the backend to filter on that. It has a number of clauses it's using for doing the tokenized row search. And then also we specified that the year should be less than 1960. So all of the filtering, a rich set of capabilities that the backend supports. Apex is smart about using all of those things. And I'll show you next how such a set of filters gets built in the designer. So let's go look at the artworks page. As you would expect with Apex, doing any kind of application development wherever possible should be declarative. So on my artworks region, I see here that there's something called the external filter, which allows you to use a SQL-like query predicate that Fusion Apps REST APIs support to add in effectively like a where clause that will restrict any data that's presented in this region. Very similar to adding a where clause in a database query. It's just that the columns are using the attribute names of your business object instead. So it's referencing the value of the before year select list for one of the filters we saw. And then there's a couple of parameters that are wired to the artist select list and the medium select list. And those are also wired declaratively using special filter parameter names that simply mention the name of the attribute, the operator that should be used, EQ is for equals, and then ignore if null gives a declarative behavior where these filters will drop out if their value is null, or jump in and participate in the query against the backend if they have a value. And there's a few different behaviors we support that I don't have time to go into, but our documentation covers those. So we've made all sorts of common use cases like parent-child, cascading LOVs, query by example lists, all very simple. So lastly, what I wanted to show was iterative development. If we look at the application of artworks, we'll see that there's a year and a price, but we don't have a particular way to indicate if an artwork is signed by the artist. And so let me clear my filters and go back to show all the data. Because, for example, this piece of art, I can see in the image here has got a signature on it. I'd like to be able to say, this is a signed piece of artwork. So it's a two-step process. Since this is a Fusion Apps backend, I can go to the data composer and say, in my Fusion business object, I'm going to add a checkbox field. I click OK. Let's just call it signed. Save and close. I'm working in a sandbox, so I'm iterating the definition of the backend data, and it's automatically got some storage that the Fusion Apps business objects takes care of. But so now we go back to the front end with Apex, and I'm going to go show you how you pick up that new field under shared components, REST data sources. We added a new field to artwork, so it makes sense. I'll go into the artworks data source, and we're going to look at the data profile for the artwork object. Just by clicking rediscover, Apex will notice there's one new field. In Fusion Apps, there's a convention that any custom fields have an _C suffix, so the field is called signed _C. I simply extend my data profile and apply those changes, and now I can pick up that signed field where I need it in my Apex app. And let's say we wanted to put that on the artwork form page. How would you expect to do that? Just like in a database table where you added a new column, you just say synchronize page items. And now there's my signed page item. By default, it's a text field, but let's make it a switch because it's a Boolean. And I know that the Fusion Apps uses true and false for those. And we could also put in something like yes and no if we want to show it in the UI like that. Let's put it up on the same line as the other things, save our form. And now if we go back to the artworks and I cancel and re-edit just the pinch, I now have, I forgot to change the label and remove the C, but you get the point. I can mark this as signed and save the changes. And so now back to front, we've added a new field in Fusion Apps business object. rediscovered it in Apex, added it in a field with just a few clicks, no code. So all of the capabilities that you'd expect out of iteratively developing a Fusion Apps extension, really, and the ability to use any region that Apex has to, go be very creative with the kinds of desktop and mobile apps you might build against the Fusion data, or even Fusion data mixed with local Apex data. There's a lot of cool Apex REST features that let you blend REST and local data. So you can use all of those together with these data sources as well. And then the very last step that you would do is, let's say you're finally ready on the Fusion Apps business app composer side. You commit your sandbox so that now it's part of the production environment. You would simply, in Apex, go back to the setting that we saw before under component settings and the Cloud REST service. And simply by blanking out the name of the sandbox, that makes all of your Apex app now work against the production endpoints again automatically. And so you would do that before pushing it into production. But typically you would be iterating maybe many weeks on back-end data changes, front-end Apex changes, and then finally kind of commit both sides together for a real complete environment for using everything you know about Apex, all your skills with any of those thousands of APIs that the Fusion Apps provide. So that's what I wanted to show today. Thanks for your time.
That's great, Steve. Thank you so much. I mean, it's very insightful to see a working demo like that. So we apologize everyone for going over time, but as you can see, we had a lot of great content. So this information was just presented by Stephen Minch regarding REST data source improvements for Fusion Apps extensions. All these recordings will be available once Apex 23.2 goes general availability soon. And we have one more session next week, next Thursday. So stay tuned for that. Get subscribed to Apex Office Hours, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon. Thank you to all the questions that have been asked from all the participants, and especially thank you to all the team members that have been striving to work and answer all these questions as effectively as possible in the Q&A. At this point, we'll conclude this office hours, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our presenters. Have a great day.